Hey, what's up, everyone? Hope all of y'all are out there staying safe. And so this is gonna be a three-part series, and this is my experience. So everything I'm saying, is 100% true. And this is just to get a message out there that addiction is real, and it could take your life. And the all these stories, um, their deaths were due to overdose. The first one, and they're all gonna be in order. So, like this one, he passed away from heroin and Valium. Mixing any type of benzo with heroin or fentanyl is very dangerous, and it's no joke. And then the following two stories will be due to fentanyl overdose. So I can't remember exactly what year this was. Somewhere between, I'd say, 2000, 2005. I've had a lot of head injuries due to car accidents, fights, and overdoses. So my memory's not all that great, but um, remembering that that day, I won't forget that. Now, my friend Donny, um, I lived with a friend of mine, and he owned this house, and he lived on the second floor and rented out the first floor. And he took a liking to me. Um, my friend Mike that owned the house. Donnie is the one that passed away and who I'll be speaking about. So my buddy Mike, he liked me. He looked at me as like a son, and I lived there for like 4 or 5 years. He ended up losing the house, but this place was a straight up um, dope house. Like people would go there to get drugs, to get high. Like this was an all day, every day um, thing that went on the whole time until my friend Mike lost his house. So it was just me and Mike that lived there. But sometimes people would crash for a few nights or a couple weeks, and then they'd leave, and But so Donnie, he had nowhere to go, and asked Mike if he could live there in the back room. And this was a porch. It had a glass door, it had a bed in there, a TV, but I don't think the TV worked. But it was just like a porch, and he asked if he could stay back there, and he would throw Mike, drugs, money, whatever he could every day, because Donnie would go out and beg for money. Now, he didn't look like a drug addict, and he'd go out there and he could really sell you a story. He'd go out there with his tool belt, like, oh, I'm stuck, I'm working, and, whatever he would say, and he would get a lot of money in a short amount of time. Now, his drug of choice was like crack, really. He never really fucked with dope, heroin. And so leading up to his death, Mike's wife, she passed away some years after this from an overdose as well. But she had been giving him Valiums, trading crack for Valium and shit. And so benzos and heroin is just a bad mix. You can lose your life. And so he had been eating these Valiums all night long, smoking crack, and I he had some dope, and he was sniffing it, just little bumps here and there, because he didn't need much. That wasn't his thing, but somehow he came upon it, and he was fucked up. So the night comes to an end, and I get a knock on my bedroom door, and it's a buddy of mine. He's like, "Hey, man, let's go. I got my car outside. Let's go make some money." And for some reason, I just wanted to check on Donnie. And my room had two entrances. One where you come in through the living room, and then another one where if you were coming up the front of the house, um, you could come into my room through the stairway coming up front. And right across that door was Donnie's room where he was staying. And there was a glass door. And in the bed you could see the corner of the bed. And I looked, and Donnie was a tall dude. He was like 6'4", like 280. So I'm like, "Hey, Donnie, you in there, buddy?" And I didn't hear nothing. And I figured I would have seen his feet, if he was sleeping. So I was like, "All right." And I got my buddy saying, "Come on, bro, let's go." So we left. I think we came back about an hour later, hour and a half, and the door was always unlocked. Like, you know what I mean? People coming and going. And I remember the door being locked. I'm like, "What the fuck? Why is the door locked?" So I knock on the door, and my buddy Mike that owns the house, he opened the door, man. I'll never forget the look on his face. He just had this blank look on his face, and he was just like white as a ghost. And I'm like, what's up, dude? Like, what's wrong?" And he's like, "It's Donnie, man. He's dead." I'm like, "What? Like, what do you mean, dude?" Like, before I left, I yelled to him. I didn't see, his feet on the bed or nothing. He's like, "Nah, man, he's in there and he's dead." And he's like, "I don't know what to do." And he's like, "Don't go in there." And of course I do. And I'll never forget. I could see the image right now, just talking about it. And the reason I didn't see his feet at the end of the bed was because he was sitting across it, the short way. He wasn't laying down, so where I would have seen his feet had he have been. But he had been his back up against the wall, and his head was tilted to the side, and his eyes were open, and he just had this black stuff just pouring out of his mouth, and it had like it pulled up on the bed, and I just looked at him. I was like, "Oh man, like that's it. You can't call an ambulance. Like, he's been dead for a while." And to this day, I wonder, like, had I have walked in the room and found him, you know, would there have been a chance? Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long he had been like that. It could have been hours, and even if I had walked through the room, it might not have mattered. But yeah, he was gone, and he was a good dude too, man. Like, so his brother lived right down the street from us, like 4 or 5 houses. And I said, "Mike, man, you gotta call an ambulance. They gotta take the body. Like, you gotta do it. I mean, nobody killed him. It's obviously from an overdose." And I said, "Mike, I think you should walk down to his brother's house, man, and tell him what's going on." Man, you know, so the police come, they see that there's no foul play, you know what I mean? They didn't ask, like, they didn't have to do an investigation. They knew it was just an overdose. And I had known Donnie for a few years by this time. And Mike had not gone on down to his brother's house and told him. And he's like, all right, I'll be over there shortly. Um, get together any of his belongings, you know, and I'll take them. And uh, man, I wanted to fucking knock out Donnie's brother, man, because this was just so fucked up, man. Right? This motherfucker comes walking from his house with a motherfucking wheelbarrow, a dirty ass wheelbarrow. You know, he had like a construction business, but he just walked on over with this dirty ass wheelbarrow and said, all right, bring down whatever, you know, belongings he had, and I'll just throw them in this here wheelbarrow. And I remember looking at Mike, and I was just like, is this guy for real? Like, a fucking wheelbarrow, bro? And, like, he didn't seem upset, you know, he kind of probably came to terms a long time ago that my brother's a crackhead and he's probably gonna end up dying from it. He's always homeless, and, you know, so, you know, finding out it probably wasn't a big shock to him. You know, I'm sure it did upset him, but it was just like, I felt so upset that, like, you know, like, dude, you just come over here with this wheelbarrow, this dirty ass wheelbarrow, just to put his stuff. And literally, Donnie had like nothing. He had a tool belt with like a hammer in it, like a couple shirts and a pair of jeans, you know? And he took his stuff and went on home. And you know, he probably wouldn't have died if he had not have mixed them benzos. But then again, he didn't do heroin, so he still might have. But yeah, that's my friend Donnie and his story. Um, gonna do another two bodies I found in Lawrence. You know, addiction is serious, and you know, if you can't help an addict, don't hurt one. And